Well, that was probably the most sacrilegious comedy I've ever seen in my entire life. And I kind of loved it. Let's talk about it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Krazy House. Yes, that very weird 90s sitcom kind of vibe with Nick Frost going nuts. That movie, Krazy House, with a K, because it's crazy. So I popped this on last night. I wanted to watch this, and I just kind of took a whim on this one. I saw some of the reviews. They were not positive about this movie at all. There were some people that were just absolutely upset, like very mad. And that kind of made me want to see it a little bit more, I think. Ultimately, I was a little worried about this one because I was like, okay, I like weird films, but is this going to be stupid weird, or is it going to be funny weird, or what is it? Turns out this is actually pretty fucking funny. One of the weirdest movies I think I've ever seen. It is what I'm calling a sacrilegious, paradoxical allegory.
Check out the big brain on bread.
Which essentially means that it's anti-religion, Christianity in particular, which is going to make everybody hate it, of course. And then it's also paradoxical and an allegory, meaning that it's absurd. The story is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense why it's happening, but it's happening to make a very big point at the end of the movie. Now, it's up to you to determine what that point is, but man, was the ride to the end a lot of fun for me, okay? So let me tell you what it's about. This is set in the 1990s as a TV show. It starts off in a box format like you would be watching Married with Children or Alf. In fact, those two in particular were used to make these sets. You'll feel right at home if you grew up with those two things. But it follows this guy by the name of Bernie, who's a super religious Christian Jesus guy, and his sitcom family who, you know, are dealing with regular real world problems, but they treat it like a 90s sitcom would. And when Bernie, who's this clumsy sort of guy, breaks something in the kitchen, destroys everything, and these Russian guys show up at the door, offer to fix anything that he wants, but they're super shady. He ends up calling them, getting them to work on the house, and they start tearing it apart and taking his family hostage. And as these events get worse and worse, the atrocities, the 90s starts to kind of shed away and reality starts to shine through, and Bernie becomes insane. This is a really creative movie, and I really enjoyed it. Like, at first, I really just had a hard time kind of coming to terms with it and like what it was about, but I looked up who the directors were, and it started to kind of make sense. The directors of this movie are from the Netherlands, and they've done some pretty crazy stuff in the past, including a show called New Kids, or in the Netherlands, it was New Kids on the Block, which I'm sure you realize why they couldn't use that. But they had a TV show where these kids that were stuck in the 80s with mullets and everything were living in the modern world, and it was really kind of funny and silly. So they ended up making movies about it. One called New Kids Nitro and one called New Kids Turbo. And one of those movies is those mullet-wearing kids with zombies. And I remember that one in particular because I remember having a really good time with that. But the other movie was also pretty funny too. Now, these movies haven't done amazing or anything. They're actually kind of low scored on the IMDb, but I urge you to check them out if you are into this movie, because a lot of what was in this movie is going to be familiar to those movies as well. This is definitely a different version, a different breed of these two directors, Stephen Hars and Flip Vanderkweel, who just came together to make an American production for their first time, make it to Sundance, and they did. Is it gonna be for everybody? Hell no. But let me tell you, let me pitch this to you, because you have Nick Frost from Simon Pegg and Nick Frost movies that they've done together. Nick Frost in this movie playing Bernie. Alicia Silverstone is in this movie as well as the mother, and quite a few other Netherlands actors that are pretty popular out there and are pretty well established actors that are in this movie. Everything is kind of done in like this TV show kind of way, and it kind of starts to change from the beginning to the end of the movie, where things become more realistic as the movie progresses. I say realistic because everything is absurd, and it really is very absurd. But there's a lot of iconography, there's a lot of like violence and gore and graphic stuff going on. There's just a lot of really dark humor in this movie. In fact, there is stuff that happened in this movie that I saw in the movie It's a Wonderful Knife. And it's similar in that regard, in that part where the whole world is like messed up in this ridiculous way. But this movie carries the torch of ridiculousness from start to finish. And it is just one of the most bananas things I've ever seen. It is definitely a cult film, and it will definitely be in my collection at some point. I highly recommend watching this, but I don't highly recommend it for everyone, including those who are super religious or religious in any degree, because this movie, man, does this movie go there more than a couple of times. I mean, it's throughout the whole film. It's kind of amazing in that regard. If you're not opposed to that kind of thing, then you're gonna love it. The humor in the beginning of the movie is not what the movie's about. The humor in the beginning of the movie is really kind of making fun of how the sitcoms looked at the world and how the world really actually is. And so that dichotomy is what these two directors are trying to fit into one movie. And then the allegory part of this movie, I have no idea. I'm not 100% sure what the story is. I think it has something to do with family and religion and being there through thick and thin. I don't know. But whatever I just watched just totally blew me away. Even Christina, who watched it, really enjoyed it as well. And she's ultra picky about stuff. If you like weird, just like what in the hell is going on kind of movies, this will be it. Some very gross stuff that happens in this movie. There's just some very absurd things that happen. Graphic, bloody. It's just all over the place. It's highly enjoyable, and I would give this movie an easy 8.5 out of 10, maybe even higher, just because it feels so original that I haven't seen anything like it. And I think, you know, it's okay to make movies that are absurd and also have a point in some regard, as long as it's an enjoyable ride. And this was for me. But yes, again, it may not be for you. Humor is subjective. You're gonna figure it out one way or another. So I really enjoyed it though, and I'm gonna pick up a copy of this as soon as I possibly can. It is just the right kind of weird for me, and man, some of the jokes made me laugh out loud by myself. So that's saying something. But yeah, Nick Frost, his performance in this is just fantastic. Alicia Silverstone does a really good job too of being the sitcom. There's some kids in this movie that do a really good job. The Russian guys are really funny. How they intermingle with the characters in the movie in the background while this guy's going mad is awesome. I would love to know what inspired this movie, why Nick Frost wanted to be a part of this, because it's just so out there, man. And it's really kind of making a statement on certain things that some people would be too afraid to do. So I think it's got a little bit of cojones. But yeah, it's out now for rent. I think it was like $5.99 right now to rent it. I couldn't find it anywhere else. It did say that it was Amazon Prime related, so I think maybe it will actually be on there at some point on their streaming service. So if you want to wait, you can. But I think it's worth a shot checking it out if you are into weird movies. Specifically weird movies that will just blow you away and you will not expect certain things to happen. You're gonna have to suspend your disbelief on just about this entire movie. But yeah, have you heard of this movie? Did you watch the trailer? Have you been kind of wondering when this is coming out? Because it just popped up out of nowhere and I was like, oh my God, I gotta watch this right now. So let me know what you think about this movie in the comment section down below. Do you think you can tough this one? Do you think you're gonna try it out? I'd love to hear from you, whether you're going to try it, not going to try it, and if you saw it, definitely come back and let me know what you think. But thanks for coming by, guys. Thanks for watching, and as always, long live the voice.